So, no teaser for this opening. No. Today we're going to play a game, and I call it Where's the Math? And we're going to play it with the California Mathematics Framework. Here we go. So a while back, I was sent a link for the California Mathematics Framework and was asked to take a look at it, at least in its current state, and I will acknowledge they're not finished yet. They're in the middle of their second field review, and their currently draft up here is, or they're starting their second field review, I should say. Their draft up here is from their first field review, but I was sent it. Because of the fact that I'm one of the many who's concerned that they're not actually teaching math anymore. And that screws kids over for an opportunity to be in sciences if you're not teaching them math to begin with. And the content of math, not just the practices. The content is just as important, if not more so, than the practices of math and the logical thinking that's there. But it sure as heck doesn't look like they're teaching that. And fact of the matter, one of the things we're gonna look at a specific chapter here and some snippets of it to make a point here and talk about where's the math with respect to chapter 2, the Teaching for Equity and Engagement chapter here in particular in this video. I may go through some other chapters in other videos, and I just want to point some of these things out. And again, for those of you, I'm not in California, I can't vote on this, so I leave it up to you who are in California. I will say for myself as a climate scientist, I do not support this. I think this is a pretty bad idea if you're looking to have students get invested in the sciences, but also just as a general person, I would not support a framework like this in the heartbeat. So we're going to look at this particular chapter, Teaching for Equity and Engagement. So let me pull that up. Okay. Teaching for Equity and Engagement. These are Word docs. You can download them. So I have not changed anything, though. The only reason I enabled the editing was just so I could highlight a few points. I have not done anything to the text. I'm just reading it for the most part and commenting, as usual. Mathematics Framework, Chapter 2, Teaching for Equity and Engagement, First Field Review Draft. So let's see here. In California, all teachers strive to ensure every child has an equal opportunity to succeed. Good on you. Don't have a problem with that. Teachers of mathematics can provide equitable education by making sure all students receive the attention, respect, and resources they need to achieve their potential. California classrooms combine diverse communities and students who bring a rich variety of cultural and linguistic resources that teachers can draw on to create culturally relevant lessons. Not supposed to... That's not math. Not bad to learn about other cultures, but that's not math. Cultural relevance is important for learning and also for expanding a collective sense of what mathematical communities look and sound like to reflect California's diverse history. Not math. Still not math. A focus on equity recognizes that mathematics over the years has developed in a way that has excluded many students. Because of these inequities, teachers need to work consciously to counter racialized or gendered ideas about mathematics achievement. Math is a pretty universal language, you know. You actually just teach math. Again, no math associated with equity. Although, not necessarily true. If you're talking about equality of outcomes with equity, you might get to math in a particular way. Anyway, it is common... Wait a second, hold on, I want to check something. Oh, shoot. I did, okay. Thought I hadn't started. It is common for people to claim that avoiding aspects of race, culture, gender, or other characteristics as they teach mathematics means they are being equitable. But the evolution of mathematics in educational settings has resulted in dramatic inequities for students of color, girls, and students from low-income homes. These inequalities include not only access to high-quality curriculum and resources, but also to instruction that appropriately leverages students' diverse knowledge bases, identities, and experiences for both learning and developing a sense of belonging to mathematics. a colorblind approach allows systemic inequities to continue. The examples that follow are provided to help educators utilize and value students' identities, assets, and cultural resources to support learning and ensure access to high achievement for all students in California, particularly English learners who are linguistically and culturally diverse and those who have been disenfranchised by systemic inequities. Okay, first off, they use inequities and inequalities here actually interchangeably at one point. Right here. There's inequalities when you probably mean inequities. Poor choice there. Also, so let's just take the statement here for a minute. If it has not been equitable outcome when you've been avoiding it and actually treating people well, if it's not been an equitable outcome the way it's been previous to this framework, why is it a good idea to code favoritism in here now? To teach differently based upon the immutable characteristics or the cultural background of the student or what have you. I can understand seeking services for language translation and that kind of thing. That's not the issue. But teaching based upon this or that, or teaching based upon identities, when mathematics is a pretty common language to just about everybody, if everybody who learns it, why does that matter? Why are we giving favoritism a priori in some ways to certain learners over others? You're also pointing out here that systemic inequity. So inequity here, we're talking about just there being a disparity to begin with between groups of people. Not necessarily proving what causes that disparity, mind you, but that's just saying there's a disparity there. But I would point out that, giving favoritism to one group, giving favoritism and treating people differently on the basis of immutable characteristics and what have you, that is favoritism based upon race. And I do believe that didn't go over well in this country previously, just to say. Let's see. Okay, this is the NCTM, National California Teachers something. National California Teachers something. I don't know what that is. I don't know the acronym off the top of my head. Creating, supporting, and sustaining a culture of access and equity required, being responsive to students. And if you're wondering why I'm looking over here, it's because I have notes over here, because I did look at this ahead of time. Acknowledging and addressing factors that contribute to differential outcomes among groups of students are critical to ensuring that addressing factors, except you label them all as systemic, I bet. Ensuring that all students routinely have opportunities to experience high-quality mathematics instruction, learn challenging mathematics content, and receive the support necessary to be successful. Addressing equity and access includes both ensuring that all students attain mathematics proficiency and increasing number of students from racial, ethnic, linguistic, gender, and socioeconomic groups who attain the highest levels of mathematics. Oh, increasing the numbers. I misread that. Socioeconomic groups who attain the highest levels of mathematics achievement. So, culture of access, you're making broad generalizations. Making broad generalizations on stereotypes based upon arbitrary, mutable characteristics applied prejudicially from the above kinds of things. That's what I get out of that. And that's interesting. Because you're supposed to be getting rid of the prejudicial stuff and the stereotypes and biases, and yet you're using the stereotypes to apply different ways of teaching and making it supposedly more accessible. Whatever happened, I was thinking about that. What happened to serving each student as an individual and focusing on the skills they need to learn, so they can reach that promised land of achievement, rather than, teaching cultural stuff. You're not actually giving them the skills to learn. You're just teaching the cultural side of things here. Again, where's the math in that? You're not actually interested in teaching math necessarily here. You're all about the cultural and the social justice kind of things. And that's not necessarily teaching math, the content of math, as much as it's teaching maybe math appreciation at best. here. Not helpful when you're going into sciences and you appreciate math, but you don't know what you're doing. And I saw that before, the kind of big picture things. We're going to give them the big picture, and I'm probably going to get to it in a bit here, but it was just like, that's all fine and well and good. And yes, understanding the big picture is a good thing. But if you cannot understand the building blocks of what makes that big picture what it is, it doesn't matter if you know what the big picture is, because you can't get there. You can't build the building blocks to get there. That's the problem with this kind of thing here. One of the many kinds of things here. Oh, goodness. Students learn best through active engagement with mathematics and one another. As such, the framework highlights the importance of students' active engagement in classrooms. Yes, students should be actively engaged. I don't actually have a problem with that particular sentence in here when you're talking about active engagement in classrooms. It is a good thing to be actively engaged. Doesn't preclude somebody from not learning about it, but, well, no, I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to go there. That's a tangent for right now, and I want to keep focusing on this. So, let's see. When teachers launch investigations into relevant content with drivers investigation identified in this framework, they elicit students' curiosity and provide motivation for them to engage deeply with authentic math. What the hell is authentic mathematics? I have never heard that before in my life. What the hell is authentic mathematics? A person can be authentic. What the hell is authentic mathematics? Give me a definition for that. Oh, for crying out loud. There's mathematics. No. It's mathematics. It's not authentic mathematics. It's mathematics. Thank you very much. Good grief. So let's see. Continuing on that side tangent, the framework suggests the following drivers of investigation: make sense of the world, predict what could happen, impact the future. Point taken here. If you wanted to do a little bit of engagement and help them with the scientific method and what have you, that's not the scientific method. That is not the scientific method in the slightest, and that could be quite useful at piquing kids' curiosity and doing engagement too, and you could teach two actual things that need to be taught, rather than the social justice nonsense, in here. Not to say that social justice isn't necessarily a good thing. I can see certain contexts where it might work, but this is not the time you're supposed to be teaching math, not social justice. Again, where's the math? Let's see. Impacting the future. Research conduct. Ha! Typo! That's their typo. Like I said, I didn't edit this. That's their typo. Research conducted in preceding decades has produced a wealth of information showing that the highest mathematics achievement, understanding, enjoyment comes when the students are actively engaged, when they develop mathematical curiosity, asking their own questions, reasoning with others, and encountering mathematical ideas in multidimensional ways. This can occur through numbers, but also through visuals, words, movement, and objects, considering the connections between them. The principle of universal design learning guidelines outline a multidimensional guide that benefits all students and can be particularly useful when applied to mathematics. Universal design. The San Francisco Unified School District illustrates its approach to UDL for teachers providing advice and guidance. When students are engaged in all these kinds of experiences, they can view mathematics and their own relationship to mathematics far more positively. The contrasting approach of students sitting in rows while watching a teacher demonstrate methods before reproducing them in short exercise questions through passive student engagement has led to widespread mathematical disinterest, perpetuating the student perspective that mathematics is merely a sterile set of rules. Okay, there's a lot of good stuff here to go into, but I mean, engagement is critical. I'm not denying that. Engagement is actually critical. But the problem is, this doesn't necessarily get them to engage with mathematics as much as it gets them to engage with the social justice side. Again, where's the math? And I'm going to get to it. Trust me, I'm going to get to it. They gave some great vignettes in here that shows the point of they're talking more about the feelings and the social justice, and I feel this and I feel that. Oh, goodness. And all this kind of stuff, it's unhelpful to remove the difficult material. And for one thing, you're not letting them fail. If you remove everything that's difficult, you're not letting them fail. Failure is the best teacher of them all. If you just let a kid try and fail, you don't scream at them that you're an awful person. I'm not condoning that. But let them try and let them fail, because for one thing, it builds a certain amount of resilience because you're going to fail more than a few times. If you go into a career as a scientist, you're going to fail more than a few times. And, it gives you an opportunity to learn from that failure. You don't learn from repeated success over and over and over again. You have to learn from failure just as much. So failure is not a bad thing. It's been framed as a bad thing. And I can understand some students being made to feel bad that they failed. Well, no, that needs to just be framed right and say, no, it's not a failure. It is a success. It's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity is what it is in a way. It's okay to fail because you learn something from it. It's not okay to fail in some situations, and I'll get to that in a minute. But in most instances, if you're learning and if you're in the sciences, you fail and then you fix it is the thing. You figure out what went wrong. But if you don't let kids fail, they can't learn the thing of building resilience and fixing stuff. Also, making it more engaging doesn't necessarily accomplish the goal of teaching the subject. If you make it too easy, they don't necessarily learn everything that they need to know. Here, and that's a point that needs to be made here, is that, yes, mathematics is more than a sterile set of rules. I give them that credit, but you're not teaching it if you just make it so easy that they don't actually even learn anything. It's on worksheets. It's just drawn out. It's pictures, and it's more than that. There is a important need for some bits of memorization there, to be able to do things on the fly later, and particularly, let's get into some other things, to be able to do it independently as an individual and not as part of a collective, because sometimes you got to do math by yourself, and you can't necessarily look at it as a collective. Fact of the matter, I would rather you looked at it as teaching an individual to do math, because an individual who is very good, who has learned math, can help another individual who is needing to learn math, can help another individual that's needing to learn math. But if none of them actually learn math, you can't help anybody. Let's see. Students must view mathematics as a vibrant, interconnected, beautiful, relevant, and creative set of ideas. Can you prove that? Where's the citation on that statement is what I kind of want to know. Wait a minute, there was one other thing. Oh yeah, this is the other thing I wanted to know. Right in here, when students are engaged in all these kinds of experiences, they come to view mathematics and their own relationship to mathematics far more positively. They're viewing it positively. Are they doing any better at it? Have they mastered the material? There's a difference between feeling good about something and being a master of it. I used to do pottery myself, actually. I felt good about doing it. It was fun to get dirty, and I learned a lot. I am terrible to this day at it. I feel positively about it, but I haven't mastered it in the slightest. I would not be good as a potter. I would not trust myself making a pot for anybody. A plate, a pot, a bowl, a dish, what have you. It's like I would not trust myself doing that. I view it positively. I still suck at it. This is the thing. Viewing something positively doesn't necessarily mean you've mastered the material. And they provide neither the proof that the statement is correct, that students view mathematics more positively, and they've also not provided the proof that those kinds of experiences improve the mastery of math. Point there. Again, where's the math? Continuing. As educators increase access for students to engage with and thrive in mathematics and value the different ways questions and problems can be approached and learned, many more students view themselves as belonging to the mathematics community. This community serves a diversity of learners more equitably, prepares students to think mathematically in their everyday lives, and helps our society develop more students interested and excited by science, technology, arts, mathematics, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, STEAM pathways. Okay. Again, if they're interested in it, that's great. If they're excited by it, that's great. Mastery. How well can they do it? How well have they mastered the content that they can apply it to their everyday lives, to this other things? If you are just teaching appreciation, and to get them to view it more positively, That's not teaching mastery. No math. It's all about feelings. There's no math there. It's all about feelings, is all that's about. Belonging, you know, yeah, but belonging is apparently more important. Feeling positive about it is apparently more important than actually being able to do it. Feeling positively about something does not mean you will have success in doing something. That's not math. Essentially, that's all about feelings. All about feelings, right there. Prepared to think mathematically by having a math by oh yeah, yeah. That's not being prepared to think mathematically, but you don't necessarily have. Where is it? Oh yeah, prepare students to think mathematically. Yeah, except that it's a blurry kind of big picture kind of thing that they feel good about and they don't have mastery over. They need somebody else as an expert to help guide them through it. Even then, they're not becoming masters of even basic math going through this kind of a framework. So no, I'm sorry. That's not math. I'm sorry. That is not math in the slightest. Let's see. Oh yes, the framework. Oh yes, a framework outlined by Darling 2019 seems particularly important in encouraging linguistically and culturally diverse language learners as well as other students. Take asset approach and recognize multilingualism as a power. No. Math as its start as you're starting as a kid is pretty much a foreign language to everybody. Because it's that unique. It is a common language to all that anyone can learn. Admittedly, there is a certain thing about learning math. So some people might be better off learning it in Spanish and what have you. But math itself is a single language all of its own. English kids are learning it just as much as Spanish kids are. The fact that a teacher may not be able to speak well in Spanish is a different problem. Multilingualism is not the thing in math. Include group work. Okay. Hang on. What are you going to do when the student has been working in groups all this time, but can't do it independently? If I took a student away from the group, could they do the math themselves without relying on somebody else? That's the concern I have here. If you cannot do math here without having the support of a group, well, that's a problem. That's a problem. That says to me that the student in question did not actually master the material. If you cannot do it to a degree by yourself. Group work that centers. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I suspect a lot of the things I'm just reading my notes here real quick. I suspect a lot of the things here with the group work side of things, when you have language development, yeah, it might help getting the terminology right. But I don't think that's what's necessarily happening in those group work discussions, as we'll get to some of the vignettes down below. Visual work include graphic organizers, visual examples, visual communication. Visual is nice, but that's not the way all math is done. In particular, if you're doing computer programming, where you need to learn math for computer programming, no, it's not very visual. It's all a lot of text, digits, things typed into a computer. Visual is a component, but it doesn't help you build higher order skills. It really doesn't help you do that. It's a start. It's a way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking visual as a component of learning here. I'm saying it shouldn't be the main focus of everything to get to learning mathematics. Let's see. Okay. Lived experiences. For one thing, I hate that phrase. I hate the phrase lived experiences, because an experience, by its very definition, is one that somebody has lived. So lived experience is a redundant and stupid phrase. I will be perfectly blunt with you on that. I despise that phrase. So it's based on students' experiences and cultures. How does that unlock the door for math? How the hell does that work? That's not math. That's all about cultural. That's all about culturally responsive pedagogy and critical theory right here wrapped up in a bunch. But it is, a fair question. How? Also, how does that... wait a second. If you allow native and home language use, How does that work when you're dealing with group work? If you're focusing everything into a group? How does it work for that? Seriously, serious question. How does it work for that? Yeah, I don't think it does. Unless you end up keeping students grouped off by whatever ethnicity or culture they are, which is segregation. No, you shouldn't be doing that. Kind of thing there. Anyway, scaffold learning and language development. Scaffold with sentence frames or sentence starters. So how about reducing the excess verbalization and actually focusing on the math? Again, where's the math? You're focusing on language and language development. That's not math. In here, you're supposed to be teaching math in a math class, hey? Oh, goodness. Give opportunities for pre-learning, opportunities to learn prerequisite material ahead of time. How about teaching them the prerequisites in prior years like they're supposed to be doing, instead of adding on layers and layers of this crap? Yeah. Yeah, that's my comment there, too. I mean, that is my comment still after reading my notes. It's just like, right, language. That's not helpful in the slightest. Alrighty. So, let me see here. There's a bunch of vignettes here, and there's 5 components supposedly of equitable teaching and what have you. And there's going to be some things I highlight in each of these that are kind of important, and some vignettes along the way. And I'm going to say again, where's the math for all of this teaching around equity and what have you? Where is the actual mathematics to do? Okay. Mathematics is a subject made up of important ideas and connections. Curriculum and standards tend to divide the subject, but it is important for teachers to think about the big ideas and characterize mathematics at their grade level and the connections between them. Instead of planning teaching around the small topics or methods set out in the standards or the chapters of textbooks, teachers can plan to teach the big ideas of mathematics. Lessons designed around big ideas facilitate the linking. Okay. As I said previously, how can you possibly apply mathematics in your day-to-day life if you don't understand the little things that build up to those big ideas? The focus overhead on big ideas when there are kids like that doesn't necessarily help them get there to the point of actually mastering the content of math and then applying it at the larger scale. No, it does not. When students learn methods before they use them, they might ask the legitimate question, when will I ever need this? The vignette below describes a high school classroom in which the teacher taught mathematical methods when students needed them to solve a problem. In working on the task, students received opportunities to learn. Okay, 36 fences vignette. Lori, a high school geometry teacher, introduces a problem to the students. Lori explains that a farmer has 36 individual fences, each one measuring 1 meter in length, that the farmer wants to put them together to make the biggest possible area. Lori takes the time to ask her students about their knowledge of farming, making reference to California's role in the production of fruit, vegetables, and livestock. This is irrelevant to the problem. That's not math. The students engaged in an animated discussion about farms and the reasons a farmer might want a fenced area. Again, irrelevant to the problem. Here, that's not math. While some of Lori's long-term English learners show fluency with social conversational English, she knows some will be challenged in the forthcoming disciplinary literacy tasks. That's not math. To support meaningful engagement in increasingly rigorous coursework, she ensures images of all regular and irregular shapes are posted and labeled on the board, along with an optional sentence frame. Still not math. Still not math. These support instruction when Lori asks what shapes they think the fences could be arranged to form. Students suggest a rectangle, triangle, or square. With each response, Lori reinforces the word with the shape by pointing at the image of the shapes. What grade level is this supposed to be for? Because if this is supposed to be for the point where you're calculating an area, you should have already learned a basic bunch of shapes as a kindergartner, maybe? Preschool, what have you. So if this is in middle school, or 4th or 5th grade, that's not math still. When she asks, how about a pentagon, she reminds the students of the optional sentence frame they crafted as their response. Lori asks the students what they asks the students think about this and talk about it as mathematicians. No, really as students, but anyway. Laurie asked them whether they wanted to make irregular shapes allowable or not. After some discussion, Laurie asked the students to think about the biggest possible area that the fences can make. Some students begin investigating different sizes of rectangles and squares. Some plot graphs to investigate how areas change with different side lengths. Susan works alone, investigating hexagons. She works out the area of a regular hexagon by dividing it into 6 triangles, and she has drawn one of the triangles separately. She tells Laurie that she knew that the angle of the top of each triangle must be 60 degrees, so she could draw the triangles exactly to scale using compasses and find the area by measuring the height. Nico's found the biggest area for a rectangle with a perimeter of 36 is a 9 by 9 square, which gave him the idea that shapes with equal sides may give bigger areas, and he started thinking about equilateral triangles. Nico was about to draw an equilateral triangle when he was distracted by Jade, who told him to forget triangles. He had found the shape of the largest area was made of 36 fences, was a 36-sided shape. Jaden suggested to Nico that he find the area of a 36-sided shape, and he leant across the table, excitedly explaining how to do this. He explained that you divide the 36 shapes into triangles, and their angles must be 10 degrees, and yes, to work it out, Jaden and Nico moved closer together, incorporating ideas from trigonometry to calculate the area. As the class progressed, many students started using trigonometry. Some students were shown the ideas by Laurie, some by other students. The students were excited to learn about trig ratios as they enabled them to go further in their investigation. It made sense to them in the context of a real problem, and the methods were useful to them. In later activities, students revisited their knowledge of trigonometry and used them to solve the problems. Okay, I may give it a little bit of credit that there's actually some bits of math in there with that one. But that whole thing about the farming up front and the importance of farming and all that kind of jazz, that's totally unnecessary. You are also going off of pictures of shapes, when at this point those students should understand and know those shapes. That should have been a prerequisite for that class to begin with. So I might actually give it a little bit of a break here that there is at least some math in that, but that's a lot easier than it's supposed to be. That's a lot easier than I remember it being. That's for dang sure. And that doesn't necessarily help them. And also, here's the thing. If you're allowing them to just go ahead and all work together, are they all learning that? Or are they just knowing that, or are they learning the material? Or are they learning that they can go for somebody else to give them the answer that they need? Just a question I have. So there's two different things here. That's not necessarily a thing. So you're learning, I can always go to somebody else. This other person here will have the answer. I don't have to work at it myself. Do you see what I'm getting? Do you see what I'm getting at with that? That's not necessarily helpful. And it's also big ideas that are utterly irrelevant. There's very little in here that actually talks about the actual ideas that need to be learned in here. And particularly because you're, having pictures of shapes on the board in here, that doesn't help with any of this, I don't think. Let's see. The one section I really wanted to get to, where is it? Open tasks. Vignettes. I'm looking for here it is. Teach towards social justice. Not your job. I'm going to put it out there right now. It's not your job to engage in anything political with the students. That is manipulating them before they have the capacity to form their own views on certain issues. And I find that repugnant, morally speaking. I find that incredibly repugnant, regardless of whatever political values and morals and worldview that I hold. It is not my job when I'm working in the university to inculcate my values in other people. No. My job, for one thing, is to do research, but when I work with students, it's to help them learn how to do research. I don't have math is a neutral discipline. It is supposed to be. And you know what? It's not something that it is not something that you build a personal relationship to, because it is a thing. It is a discipline, a mathematics discipline that you are needing to learn, something you're supposed to learn. It is not a person. Here. So I got to say something with that is that that's not math. If you're teaching social justice as part of math, that's not math anymore. You're not teaching math. You are teaching social justice disguised as math. Anyway. Modeling high expectations for all students. I don't have high expectations if this is the way they're going. All right, so vignettes. Let's continue. Many of the students had experienced immigrating with their families to the U.S. or knew relatives who had, as well as family members living on the other side of the Mexican border. Through map explorations and a series of discussions, students used and expanded their math skills, as you see in the vignette below. Okay, here's the thing. Political issue, illegal immigration. Why are you putting this into a math class? In all seriousness, why are you putting it in there? You can learn things that are in here without doing that. The only reason I can see is that you're putting it in here because of your social justice initiatives, and that is not necessarily an important thing here. Not as important as learning in the math class. You need to be learning the content of math and mastering it. Not necessarily the social justice nonsense. This does not help with the mastery of math. On a map, two students located the different places where their relatives lives or that they had heard mentioned. They selected the starting and end points of immigration and figured out the distances. So you're plotting a route for immigration into the U.S. Okay. Yeah, so right here is a mile. I think that's more than a mile, 8 miles. There's a scale on the map somewhere. Let's measure this. Okay, how inches, 1 inch. What are these numbers? Millimeters. What are millimeters? Millimeters are more than, no, do you see millimeter? Oh, these are millimeters, these are inches. So in other words, you're instead of them teaching the basics of distance and figuring out the distance from one place to another. Also, this is not necessarily math here. Hold on a second. If you're plotting the distance between two places. Wait a second. If you're plotting the thing and you're just simply measuring the distance between two places, that's not math as much as geography right there. Which has a bit of math in it, but that's geography. That's not really math. Not really the basics of content and mathematics is what I'm trying to get at here. But there is absolutely very little math involved here, save for a unit conversion. So you've actually taught them nothing in math, as far as I can tell here. As far as I can tell here. I don't think I'm quite all the way through this. Multicultural children's literature can also be used as context to learning mathematics with students' cultural experiences. Again, where's the math? For example, in The Great Migration, an American Story, young children explore quantity in terms of population shifts. In First Day in Grapes, a boy from a family of migrant workers uses his knowledge of mathematics to earn the respect of his peers. Drawing on The Black Snowman, students can explore money problems through context linked to the African diaspora. One Grain of Rice offers students a context for exploring exponents and the importance of sharing food through the story of a peasant girl who tricks a Raja into giving her the royal storehouse's entire supply of rice. Multicultural Mathematics Materials, NCTM, by Marina Kraus, also includes several games and activities that draw on Hopi and Navajo materials. It's all well and good. Are they mastering the content of math? It doesn't matter half as much. And here's the thing. Here's the thing, too. If you want them to be able to apply this if you want to be able to have students apply mathematics in all of their different experiences, you will have to include, how are you going to make them able to do that if you focus only on the cultural things that relate immediately to them, and they thus do not learn how to apply it outside of things that are not familiar to them? Because quite often, as you go through life, you're going to run into many things that are not familiar to you, but you do need mathematics for them. Point to be made here with that. I think that's probably one of the more concerning things here is there's so much more focus on culture than there is on the content of math. And I don't think that's going to end well. And I have yet to see these authors prove definitively that this actually works and I wanted to see it in here, not send me off to some other study somewhere. Show me the numbers in here that this actually works to improve both that students view math positively, because you didn't prove it. You didn't provide me the evidence that that's the case. To also show me that students taught in this manner, mathematics in this manner, actually have mastery of the content better than other students who were not taught in this manner. You did not prove either. You have not proven either of those things to me. Empowering students with mathematics also includes removing the high stakes of errors and sending the message that learning is always unfinished and that it is safe to take mathematical risks. This mindset creates the conditions for students to develop a sense of ownership over mathematical thinking and their right to belong to a discipline of mathematics. Okay, first off, you don't have a right to belong to any particular discipline. You don't. You have to earn it. For me and where I am now, it was a PhD in atmospheric science for me to get where I am. Huge amounts of mathematics mastery, a lot of work. I earned it. You do not have the right to belong to any particular discipline. You have to earn it. And in order to earn it, you do have to take risks. And with risks comes the prospect of failure. Errors do sometimes have very high stakes, and students do need to learn that. And you do need to learn that you will fail and that you can bounce back from failure. Failure is not the end, it is a learning opportunity. But the thing is, you're removing the high stakes of there being a failure, and yet at the same time you're trying to tell them that it's safe to take mathematical risks. If you're taking a risk, it is by definition not 100% safe. You're taking a risk, trying something, knowing that it may fail. That whole section right there is in complete contradiction. Because you're taking away the possibility of failure and then saying it's safe to take risks. And by definition, a risk is the potential of failure. But if you're taking away that kind of if when you start taking things away like that, you're not teaching students that failure is going to happen. And failure, yeah, it sucks. It feels terrible most of the time. But you also got to learn to rebound from it. You're not teaching students resilience as much as you're teaching safetyism as part of this. And no, you do not have a right to be a part of a particular discipline. Oh, another vignette. Nope, that's not the one I was interested in. Sorry. We'll go from here. Although this one might be just as interesting. Or did I? No. That's not the one I was interested in as much. There was another one that was better. Ah, yes. Cross-cultural communication. In the vignette below, the teacher emphasizes the importance of communicating mathematical ideas and attending and responding to mathematical ideas of others across languages. This vignette comes out of classroom research on the participation of linguistically and culturally diverse English learners in mathematical discussions. It documents an actual classroom experience. The teachers and students, grades 4 to 5, are discussing multiplicative relations using a paper folding task where students fold a piece of paper into make 24 equal parts. Note how the teacher and the class members engage with Ernesto's thinking about the mathematics in this task. Ernesto is an English learner. By focusing attention on his reasoning, the teacher validated his status as a contributor to the mathematical discourse within the class. Ah, goodness. So, let's see. Ernesto, would you tell us how you solved it? Folded it 5 times the same way. Stands up in front of the room. Hands Ernesto a piece of paper to show his folds. Let's see. Let's listen to him. Folded 5 times equally like this. Folds paper 5 times in the same direction. Using an accordion fold. Unfolds paper. His idea, to fold it 5 times, and you get 6 parts. Does anyone have something to say to Ernesto? What did you think of it? Anybody agree? Pause. Anybody else do it that way? It's different from ours because he folded it 5 times to make 6 parts, and we, all 3 of us, students who were shared previously, folded it in half and then in 3 times to make 6 parts. So you notice some way that Ernesto's strategy is a bit different. Reflection. The classroom community could be relied on to translate for others. The emphasis remained on positioning all learners as thinkers and as members of the same community. In doing so, students who historically are marginalized from mathematical discussions, in this case English learners, were positioned as contributors and thinkers alongside their English-speaking peers. Further, students from dominant cultures, in this case monolingual English speakers, had the opportunity to engage with mathematical ideas of typically silent students to take their ideas into consideration and to build on and make their connections to mathematical thinking. Okay. Multiplicative relations. So multiple ways of doing the math to arrive at the same number. Fine. I get the point that that's what you're trying to get to. Question: can you do it without the paper? Can you do it without the paper? Can you do it at all without the paper? Here's the thing about that. Because in the real world, you're not always going to have that piece of paper to do that. So did those kids learn how to memorize those timetables? Can they multiply on the fly? And again, this is also more about centering specific people in the discussion than it is about doing math. Because this doesn't help actually anybody learn to memorize their multiplicative tables in here, or to think on the fly of, you haven't memorized the multiplicative tables, and so you cannot then think on the fly there. So where's the math? There's not much math in there at all. There's not much learning of math in there at all. That is more so about centering different people. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for teaching everybody math. That's not the issue. The issue in here is that it doesn't teach math in the slightest. It teaches you how to fold pieces of paper. In here, you don't learn anything you cannot necessarily do that if you're learning it that way and you haven't learned the memorization, you haven't learned the bit of memorization that you do need to do, then you can't do that on the fly without the piece of paper. Or without somebody else there. So that's not teaching the content of math in the slightest. This is all about social justice right here. This is not math. Again, where's the math? Mathematics educators committed to social justice can also work to both raise awareness of the way textbook examples exclude and stereotype certain students, and to provide curricular examples that equip students with a toolkit and a mindset to combat inequities within mathematics. Not your job. Again, that is social justice. That is not your damn job, actually, as a math teacher. I'm going to say that right now. Your job is to teach the content of mathematics and the mastery of it so that students can go on and apply it themselves, not to teach your worldview. I don't care. I don't care if you are supportive of that worldview or not. It is not the teacher's job to do that. That is the parent's responsibility. So parents, I got to ask you, are you okay with this? Are you okay with some teacher teaching your student values through a math course like this? Because I would not. I don't have kids, but I would not if that was the case in here. And it's not your job. Also, the other thing is here, exclude and stereotype certain students. Okay. My question with this is that how do you know through this kind of thing you are not building whole new stereotypes of students to begin with? Because that's one of the biggest problems I have with the way DEI and critical theory is done currently, is it builds whole new stereotypes of people. It doesn't break them down. So there's that too. So again, this is not your job if you're teaching mathematics. Your job is to be teaching the content. There is no math. There is no math in this. Critical math education. Teaching math for social justice. Not your damn job to teach anything for social justice. Let's see. Okay, this is the final thing here. I think there's a couple of vignettes here that I wanted to hit in because, again, these are not necessarily important. Let's see. Math Identity Rainbows vignettes. Purpose to reflect on and share the strengths that you and your teammates bring to the group. Here's the thing. I go back to this again. It's okay to learn teamwork. I'm not knocking that. Not knocking that in the slightest. But what are you going to do if you're by yourself and you're independent and you don't have a whole bunch of things and you don't have access to things that can help figure it out for you? Are you still going to be able to do the math? Things that I'm not seeing in here is actually teaching people how to master math in this particular chapter. And making it easy doesn't help with the mastery necessarily either. Let's see. Your task is to arrange the chords according to your relative strengths and weakness. Persevering, try my best. Orange is numerical reasoning, good sense for numbers, and use numbers flexibly. That's not numerical reasoning. Communicating, I can explain. I don't think that is any... No, that's not. I can explain my reasoning clearly to others. I can use methods to tools to arrive at solutions. I can generalize patterns and see connections between concepts. I know what I've learned and what I still need to learn. Arrange the chords in order of your strengths and weaknesses. Through this task, Ms. Wong offered a definition of mathematical competence as multifaceted. Okay. None of that is actually about the content. These are good practices. None of this is about the content of math. And frankly, for crying out loud, math identity, this is more math practices, for crying out loud. This is not math identity. This is about your practices of math and communication skills in math. It is not about your identity in math. Good grief. Ms. Wong emphasized all of these are extremely important to being mathematicians, and everyone has these qualities, but you have different strengths, right? So the idea is you're going to order these chords on your desk so that the top strand is what you think your biggest strength is. Students reflected individually and then shared their top strength with their partner. Students then discussed the strengths of each group member brought to their mathematical work. In doing so, the students had the opportunity to notice that together they were part of a mathematical community in which each member offered different important strengths. Practices. None of you actually mentioned the content. There is nothing in those ropes that says I am a good master of the content. This is all touchy-feely right here. This has nothing to do with the actual content and mastery of math. So maybe you have nobody in your group that actually knows how to do math. In the following vignettes, Mr. Ross leads an example. Oh, I remember this one. This is a long one. Again, where's the math? Ask about the math mastery. Let's see. Ms. Ross teaches 5th grade at Jackie Robinson Academy. She has been focusing on developing her students' socio-political consciousness through language arts and wants to bring mathematics into their thinking. Again, not math if you're bringing in math into something else that's not teaching math. To begin the process, the class is led in an analysis of word problems from their 5th grade mathematics textbook. Ms. Ross selects 3 word problems to connect with the class's current reading aloud of George, a novel by Alex Gino that shares the story of a 10-year-old transgender 4th grader and her struggles with acceptance among friends and family. Not math. None of that is teaching math. In doing so, the teacher is reflecting the recommendations of California's health framework, which suggests that sensitive discussions of gender are important for students. Not in a math class. Not important for a math class. That's not teaching math. Where's the math? Miss Ross reads the questions aloud to the class. Ami used 7/9 yard of ribbon in her dress. Jasmine used 5/6 yard of ribbon in her dress. Which girl used more ribbon? How much more did she use? A 5th grade class made up of 12 boys and 24 girls. How many times as many girls as boys are there in the class? Ms. Hernandez knitted a scarf for her grandson. The scarf is 5/6 of 1 yard long and 2/9 of 1 yard wide. What is the area of the scarf? All of those are word problems that are math. Ms. Ross uses a say, mean, matter graphic organizer based on the following questions. Say, what does the text say? What does it mean? How do I integrate this? Read between the lines. Why does it matter? Why does this matter? Why does this matter to me or others? What are the implications? This is teaching to problematize. In other words, to look for all the things that might be wrong with it. You're analyzing the word problems for what's wrong with the word problem from a critical social justice perspective. You are not analyzing the word problem to actually solve it. That is not math. In this say, mean, matter thing. Again, where's the math? Where's the math? Now, these 3 things up here, they're legit math problems. But the way it's going around it, not math. Ms. Ross asked the first question, what does this text say, to engage her students in an analysis of word problems with the question. Across the room, students sit forward in their chairs, some tracing the words on their papers and with their fingers in attempts to examine the text more closely. After some silence, Ms. Ross repeats her question, what does it say? And students slowly begin to share out, explaining the word problem through words, drawings, and numbers, a process that transforms the class conversation into one of fractions and measurements. No, it doesn't really. Oh boy. Several students remark on the knitted scarf problem, leading to a group discussion comparing the characteristics of and units of measure between area and volume. The excitement builds in the classroom as students traverse mathematical concepts, discussing different methods of problem solving based on what makes sense for each student and the methods of operation to use in relation to the problem context. Hold on. In other words, you're going off of the students' lived experiences, and this is how best they should solve a problem, rather than some common techniques that actually work between all groups of people. The conversation shifts as Ms. Ross then asks the students, what does this mean? In the second level of analysis, students now are asked to consider for themselves what the text means. Ms. Ross gives students time to think about the meaning on their own, and then students engage in sharing with their partners. After a few minutes of talking in pairs, the whole class comes together for a conversation, having had multiple opportunities to see the problem from differing perspectives. The open question, what does this mean, could potentially go in many possible directions, allowing students to bring their own noticings, curiosities, and concerns to bear on the problem. Not math. That's not math. That is, in all seriousness, not math. Should have ended previously. Should have ended right here and solve the problem. Who can solve the problem, and how much is this? Nope, that's not math. What you're showing me right here is not math. Where's the math? As depicted in the image below, the students in this particular classroom came to notice the role of gender in the mathematics problem. As the third and final prompt within the exercise, oh my gosh. As the third and final prompt within the exercise, Ms. Ross asks students, why does this matter? This time, she is asking the students to identify perspectives and points of view in the text and encouraging them to look for silences in the text. This is the problematizing that happens in critical theory. Looking for things that are wrong where none exist, really. Students are able to take what they noticed and named, in this case, how gender played out in the problem, and consider its implications, enabling critical thinking. That is not critical thinking in the classical liberal sense. That is not critical thinking in the classical liberal sense. That is critical thinking in the critical theory sense, where you are taught to problematize everything and rip it apart and show how bad it is. That is not critical thinking. At least not as I prefer it as a scientist. So that doesn't help people think in good ways about science anyway. In doing so, Ms. Ross' question asked students to grapple with what prior knowledge and experiences, aside from mathematics, is needed. If you're solving a math problem, you just need to know the content of math. It doesn't matter. You could rearrange it to say Jack was the one knitting the scarf or something like that. It really doesn't matter. Can you solve the problem? Did you master the content? None of this is relevant to actually mastering mathematics. Whose lived experiences are not included. Hate that phrase again. Absolutely hate that phrase. Whose experiences are not included. During classroom discussion, several questions and concerns arise from their conversations. What constitute boys' things and girls' things, problems. None of this is relevant. None of this is relevant right here. Absolutely none of this is relevant to actually learning the content of math. None of these questions need to be talked about. This is not teaching math. This is teaching social justice dressed up as math, or dressed up with math. This is a horrible vignette. Here, I don't know who thought this one up, but this is a horrible idea. You're not, at least for the context of actually teaching what math is. Yeah, actually, you could just drop a different name in there. Who the hell cares? Goodness. Okay. So I wanted to bring this one up because because this was the interesting thing here. Students' mathematical investigations. The word problem analysis serves as a springboard for students to investigate their own questions. When student asks, are there word problems that have male knitting and scarf cooking, cleaning, Lastly, are there word problems that challenge gender stereotypes? Somehow I doubt a student actually asked that. But then again, it's right here, so maybe a student did. When examining the entire textbook, the students notes there are a few instances of gender-fluid problems. However, the problem continued to conflate gender with heterosexual identity. The class could not find problems involving non-nuclear families or gender non-conforming characters. Miss Ross has students notice these patterns, but students also asked students why certain items are perceived as for only girls or boys, and the implications for these assumptions. She continues her students by asking, why does this matter? Who does this privilege? Who is silent? None of that has a damn thing to do with math. You're not teaching the mastery of content associated with math. The last stage, students collaboratively rework and reframe word problems into new scenarios. This disrupt the taken for granted and expand possibilities. In this case, for gender nonconforming and LGBTQ representations that students choose to make visible. Juan is cutting a ribbon to make a pink bow, or Molly's dad knits a scarf for his husband. Oh gosh. Here are web links to view the three groups' word-created problems and their justifications for changes. The vignette is adapted from Mathematics for Whom, reframing... Again, extremely teeny amount of math in that whole thing. Where's the math? That was not math in the slightest. That was social justice, teaching social justice, dressed up with a teeny bit of math. And, you know, dressed up with a teeny tiny bit of math. So I'll wrap this up for you because this video's already gotten long. But, like I said, where's the math in the California math framework? Because there's not a whole hell of a lot of it there. There's a lot of teaching social justice, but not really teaching math. And also, there's a lot of really making it easy. You're not actually teaching students that failure is going to happen, that failure is okay, that you can learn from failure, actually. But you're teaching them that to do everything possible then to avoid the negative feelings that can come with failure, rather than to be resilient to them and learn from them and figure out how to frame it. Not empowering these kids at all to act as individuals, really. You're teaching about collective identities and what have you, and reframing things in social justice. There's very little math in the California math frameworks if this is how they're planning to teach it. Admittedly, I haven't gone through everything in the math framework, so that's kind of hard to tell, but I would kind of doubt that these students are going to have the mastery of math. And indeed, what they have not proven, as so far as I have read thus far, and it could be wrong, could be elsewhere, they have not proven that this actually positively affects a person's view of mathematics, nor have they proven that this improves a student's ability to master math, improves the mastery of math amongst students. Nor does it prove that they can work independently and without the coordination of a group. You've done a huge amount of group work in just this thing, focusing on the collective again. Group work, not the individual. So, given that there's so many times that I as a scientist have to work independently, there's an amount of content of math that must be mastered. You cannot just appreciate it. You cannot just have a positive view for it. You have to master it. And the fact that they seem to be very intent on avoiding failure, rather than teaching that failure is part of learning, here, which it doesn't seem like they're interested in, because you eliminate the cost of errors, and you eliminate the cost of errors and say it's safe to take risks. Well, the risk is never safe. That is a complete contradiction. So you're not helping students build resilience to failure and learn how to bounce back from failure. And it's something you can only do when you're actually having standards for grading and focusing on the content of math. So that's my take as a scientist, as a climate scientist. No, I heartily do not think this is a great framework as it's currently written, at least in this particular chapter that I have read. I don't think teaching social justice dressed up as math is actually going to help students master math. But hey, that's just me in here. You're also making it remarkably easy in a lot of ways, rather than actually giving them a challenge. Which doesn't say much for a lot of the things you're putting in here, because a lot of students, if you push them, can really rise to actually succeed in challenges. Give them motivation. Show them where they're having a problem. Give them the tools to get better. And yeah, a lot of students can rise to a really challenging situation. But this seems more social justice lined up with math and making it quite easy rather than actually challenging students. But that's my take on it. That's the California Mathematics Framework, Chapter 2, anyway. I may do a few other chapters of this. I'm looking for some recommendations. If you want me to look through something in particular, let me know. But as it is, I don't think this is a good idea, California. Sorry. Just don't think so. That's it for now. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, like the video on the way out the door, comment on the video, all that good jazz, share the video. Of course, come on over and join us on my Locals channel at shiosophia.locals.com, where we can have chats on science, math, philosophy, higher ed, all those fun issues, sans the censorship that is online currently. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Adrienne. Until next time, I hope you stay curious.